Hello, my name is Alyssa Gonzalez, and today we will be discussing the effects of time spent playing video games on self-esteem. Technology is increasing exponentially and is becoming a larger part of our daily lives. In 2015, the Entertainment Software Association actually found that 42% of Americans engage in video games for 3 or more hours a week. Spending that much time on one particular activity does definitely merit a need for more attention from the scientific community to see how it may impact us. And the scientific community has taken notice, although there is disagreement as to what type of effects this prolonged exposure from video games can have on a person. In 2000, Colwell and Payne observed that antisocial behavior and time spent playing video games were positively correlated in males in the United Kingdom. However, they recreated this experiment 3 years later to test the generality of the findings with a group from Japan with similar gameplay patterns. In this group, there was no such correlation between the two variables. Both measured antisocial behavior by considering the number of close relationships maintained by the participant, and time was recorded based off of self-surveys that were submitted. In both groups, however, there was a desire for companionship, although in males there was a stronger desire for electronic companionship. Electronic companionship is definitely something that is new and has emerged with these online platforms. It allows these people to create relationships and form close relationships through online communities. The Guggen, Moyler, and Bisney in 2015 actually observed a massive multiplayer online role-playing game, or MMORPG, which is exactly that. These people build communities known as guilds, which are collections of people who are all playing the same online game at the same time. They form group identities. These groups also help reduce the pressures of social identity and allows them to form their own identity. They can then correlate this profile and this game experience to themselves in real life and use that to internalize, positive information and even improve social skills in the real life. However, there is, of course, negative research found in support of video games harmfully impacting people. In 2001, Messias, Castro, Saney, and Usman observed teenagers and found that those who spend 5 or more hours each week playing video games were more likely to have depressed feelings. This study did not explore any further than that. It simply found the relation between time spent and sad or depressed feelings. This would definitely be a study that kind of inspired me, just because you have to start exploring the other aspects of the environment that could be impacting them. The lack in consistency in these results is why there is a need for additional supporting evidence. This study examines the relationship between time spent playing video games and self-esteem. I hypothesize that as gameplay increases, the self-esteem scores will be negatively impacted. The study was conducted with a total of 57 volunteers completing the online questionnaire and survey. Of those 57, 51 participants responded and completed the survey and the questionnaire. The survey was conducted or taken via Google Survey. They were to report their hours spent playing in the last 7 days. This was limited to home console gameplay only, so this excluded mobile devices and mobile handheld apps. This would include, but not limited to, PS4, Xbox, Nintendo, and other PC gaming platforms like those. We did use the Rosenberg Self-Esteem Survey as our measure for self-esteem score. Rosenberg invented this in 1965, and this was, again, how we calculated self-esteem to compare it to our time variable to see if there was any correlation. As you can see in the analysis model here, age versus time spent playing video games, there is no obvious relationship or pattern as to gameplay and age. It seems that there are sporadic amounts of people playing different amounts of time. The average age being 22.36 with a standard deviation of 3.32. Time spent playing video games, the average was 6.88 hours with a standard deviation of 6.87 hours. The average self-esteem score being 26.38 with a standard deviation of 2.29. The next scatter plot is then the actual scatter plot for the two variables that we were testing with this project. Correlation of hours spent between playing video games versus self-esteem scores. As you can see, there does appear to be some clusters, but there is no relationship. There was no best line of fit. So there was no relationship obvious from just the scatter plot. When we got to the results, that it was also not supported. There was no relationship between the two variables presented after calculating the p-value, where the p-value was greater than 0.05. P actually equaled 0.83, which was significantly higher than the p-value level we set, which again indicated to me that there was absolutely there was strong evidence against the relationship for this. So we did fail to reject the null hypothesis. Although this did not show any statistically significant evidence supporting the original hypothesis, it does not mean that there's not room to continue to explore this topic and to look at other variables that could have impacted the environment and the self-esteem scores. As there is, evidence that shows there must be some type of relationship. It is just our responsibility to figure out what those relationships could be. There were some limitations with this study that could have impacted the study's findings. One of those being sample size. There was a very small sample. We had 51 participants who met the qualifications for the age groups and actually completed the full survey so that we could use the information. With a larger sample size, we could have had more variety and diversity in the sample, which could have more accurately represented our population. There is no way to prove that perhaps it could have been skewed or biased by the people who were taking them, along with the possibility of the Hawthorne effect. These people were willingly taking this online survey. They did have to consent in the very beginning, knowing that this was going to be a part of a survey and a study. That could have very well shaped how they responded to the questions. This definitely could have impacted the self-esteem scores, especially. That is something that's a bit more vulnerable. They could have known, that someone was going to be looking at this information and answered possibly a little dishonestly, or a little less truthful to themselves, or answered how they thought they want the answers to be. There again, is no way to account for this specifically, rather than possibly just increasing our sample size, give us a better representation of the public, give us more samples, and it could have shown a different relationship, possibly less of a difference between the two. This definitely is something that continues to be relevant to today. As we dive further into technology, there is a need to continue to explore how it will impact us. This is important and should be shared because this affects everyone. This is not something that you have to have a degree for to care about or know about. There are people every day who are playing these video games, who are spending their time doing this, and it impacts us, and we have to figure out what it can do at these different points of development. There are different genres of video games that could have different effects on us. Again, there are different points of your life that you could be playing these video games, and there are different ways that it can influence you. This one video game is not going to impact a 5-year-old the same way it could impact someone in their 20s. There is so many open questions in this field. That is why I feel that we should continue to give our attention to this to get these answers. There is just a strong need just to figure this out, and that people would care about this just because it's very practical to today's world. And just like we have things like sports psychology, IO psychology, they went from niche subjects to becoming very big categories that required attention because they have a large impact on us. I definitely see the future of psychology moving towards creating something like a technological field of psychology, seeing how different levels of platforms of technology can impact us, what different things like mobile devices versus home consoles, the type of games you play, the amount of time spent playing, the dialogue. There are even topics that explore sexualization of female characters and self-esteem. There are so many different angles that can be observed and looked at. This is an entirely new field with so many opportunities available and open to us. And as professionals, we should strive, and as researchers, we should strive for these answers, for the betterment of our future. With this technological future we are most definitely headed towards. And I really did enjoy this experience, as it did show me that this evidence, those findings, those studies, when you see those claims online and on TV, there are studies behind it, and it's important for us to read them for ourselves because they show those relationships that are real, and it's more concrete for us to know. I feel that the more people who look into researches and experiments like this, the more aware you are of the world around you and what is true and what is not, and you can make better informed decisions. And I look forward to continuing to do this type of work. Thank you so much.